Okay, this is going to be a little bit raw and uncut. The video may contain bloopers. Just ride with us, if you will. So this is real reality, sewing reality, right? My name's Jody. I'm the owner of Raintree Quilting, and I'm recording this video during National Overlocker Month, which occurs every April. So, and people have a lot of questions about overlockers, so I'm hoping to provide some answers through this instructional video regarding how to attach binding to your quilt. And yes, I attach binding to my quilts on my overlocker because it's just amazing. So first of all, I want to explain what I'm doing. This particular machine is Bernina's Quilter's Edition overlocker. It's a Quilter's Edition because it has kind of quilting designs on the top and it comes with special feet, but any overlocker can accomplish what I'm going to do today. So what I want you to understand is I'm using 4-thread overlock stitch. So I have my my favorite threads, which happen to be Serger polyester threads in my left needle, my right needle, and in my upper and lower looper. But in my lower looper, I also have a fusible thread. So yes, you can put 2 threads through your loopers. It's fine to do that. I'm going to go through the process of attaching a binding to this particular table runner. I'm going to use a folded binding that I purchased from Moda. I love Moda's binding on a roll. I highly recommend it. We carry it in a lot of colors. It's just a real time saver and great for projects that you don't have a whole lot of time to work with. So I do not hand sew my bindings at all, and the reason I don't is because I have issues with my neck, so why put myself through that strain? So I always attach my bindings to the back of a quilt, and then I fold them forward and I top stitch them. And so that's the method I'm going to be showing you. But I want you to know that you can use the same principle for the hand sewn method, where you attach to the front, you fold to the back. So I'm going to now turn to my machine, and I'm going to ask Becky, who is working with me here, to kind of zoom in and get closer to what I'm doing right here. I put a flannel backing on this, and I am so fine with nothing matching right now because I think you're going to be able to see what I'm doing a lot better. So I'm going to lay my binding right at the edge. I'm using a clear foot that allows me to make sure that my stitches are a 1/4 inch. I'll lower my presser foot. I'm leaving a tail, and actually I like to leave about 12 inches, a 12-inch tail. I have my machine set up so that my needle will automatically stop in the down position. You cannot pivot on a serger. You can't pivot with 2 needles. I need you to remember that. And you can't pivot on a serger at all. The needle's in the down position so that my quilt is stable. If I need to stop and realign things, I want my seam to stay really straight. Okay, so here we go. Okay, now what I'm going to do, and this may seem a little odd, I'm going to sew till my needle comes to the very edge, okay? On a regular conventional sewing machine, I would do a little back stitch there, but you can't back stitch with overlockers. And as my needle comes to that edge, I'm going to raise my needle, and on the Bernina you just tap your foot pedal and you can raise it. On other machines, you might have to mess with your hand wheel. This is an air threader, and on air threaders you don't have to chain stitch off, you just get to pull your threads. So I'm going to pull my thread, and I'm going to use the cutter that's conveniently located on the side of my machine. So this is my first set of stitches right here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my binding up so that I'm bisecting this angle exactly in half, and then I'm going to bring this down here. And what I want you to understand, and this is very important, this fold needs to be lined up with this edge. Do not let your fold go too far. If you do, you're going to have a horrible miter, and it's going to look really tacky. And for some reason, we as humans tend to think more is better, and that's just not the case. You want to line that up exact. And then I'm going to come back to my overlocker. I'm going to lower my presser foot. I am lining the cut edges of my binding even with the actual quilt itself. And this quilt was trimmed really straight. And if it's not real straight, the knife of my cutter is going to trim that extra stuff off. Another thing that's really nice about using an overlocker is you don't have all those little random threads hanging in your way when you go to do the last step of your binding. Okay, again, my needle is at the very edge, needle down for stability purposes. Then I'm going to get my needle back up. I'm going to raise my presser foot, pull that out. I'm going to cut my thread on the thread cutter, and I like to have about a 1/2 inch left. I'll use scissors. I'll pull my loops there. That 1/2 inch is just going to get buried in the final stage of the binding. So I'm going to pull this up. Again, I want this to fold so that it's cutting this larger angle in half. When you're doing a square cornered quilt, which is the most common way to bind a quilt, it's going to be a 45-degree angle, not so on this particular quilt. This quilt has 6 corners. So once again, I'm coming to that 3rd corner, and that needle needs to be down. I'm going to raise it up, pull my thread back. I'm going to cut my thread on the cutter. I'm going to take my binding. I'm going to bisect that angle, bring it down till the fold is touching the edge of the quilt at a 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to continue sewing. You'll notice I'm not clipping, I'm not pinning. In fact, I never bring pins to the overlocker. If you accidentally surge over a pin, you're going to damage your blade, and that pin could hit you in the face too. I usually use Wonder clips if I'm clipping, if I need to attach anything. Kind of keeping an eye on my thread too. I'm binding quite a few quilts, and these smaller spools don't give you a lot of Okay, needle to the edge, raise needle, raise presser foot, pull towards the back. If you don't have an air threading overlocker, you need to serge off the back. You're going to serge a chain. I'm bisecting my angle, folding this down till the fold is right at the edge of my serged seam there at a 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to place this under the presser foot. I'm going to continue. Needle down right at the edge. Get my needles back up, raise presser foot, pull the thread towards the back, cut my thread, leaving a 1/2 inch to 1 inch hanging off the edge there. Fold this so that it's bisecting, dividing that larger obtuse angle exactly in half. Then I'm going to bring the rest of the binding down. Remember, I want my fold to be even with the edge. I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but when you're learning something new, you kind of need a lot of repetition. That's why I chose this particular quilt to demonstrate this. I actually have a lot of these for demonstration purposes. Needle down at the edge, get my needle up, raise presser foot, pull towards the back, cut on the cutter, leaving at least a 1/2 inch of thread. Fold this so that it bisects that obtuse angle, and then fold it back down so that the fold is even with that edge at a 1/4 inch. Because my seam is a 1/4 inch. And this is the last run before I take this to another sewing machine to show you how to finish this off. Okay, so you'll see I have about 12 inches here. I like to have about 12 inches here. I'm going to sew to about here, and I'm leaving about 10 or 12 inches here, and you'll see why in a little bit. So I'm going to stop there, needle up. This time I'm going to pull my thread out, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail here because I just need that to be strong. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my binding, giving myself enough room to play with this. Our next step is going to take us to a conventional sewing machine.